Hello, I'm Billy Stewart, Assistant Pastor here at Solid Rock Tabernacle, 1325 Rudy Road in Alma, Arkansas. Thank you for joining us for the broadcast. I'd like to extend this personal invitation for you to come join us in one of our spirit-filled services. Our Sunday school begins at 9 a.m., our Sunday morning worship is at 10 a.m., and our Sunday evening worship is at 6 p.m. We also have an exciting Wednesday evening Bible study that begins at 7 p.m. Come join us, won't you? 1325 Rudy Road in Alma, Arkansas. Hey, we'll save a seat for you. And now, let's join our service already in progress.
All right. Okay, we're back up and going now. Well, we're not gonna. We're gonna get to. We're gonna finish 48 and 49, but we may be a little bit longer because it's quite a bit. But let's get through it as fast as we can. Anybody remember where we left off last week? Starting on verse 13. Yeah, he said, "Don't bury me in here with these Egyptians. Bury me over there with my kinfolk." So, yeah, a lot of 12s in there. Yeah. All right, let's go to it now. Jacob or Israel is about to bless Joseph's children. So let's go to Genesis 48, verses 13 and 14. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand towards Israel's left, and Manasseh in his left hand towards Israel's right hand, and brought them near unto him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hands wittingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. Now, the right hand in the Bible is always considered, it's the idea of the favored position, right? Because the right hand, generally speaking, the right hand is the hand of strength. It's the hand of skill. The people who are left-handed are not in their right mind, okay? Or I guess the people who are left-handed are the only ones in their right mind. Is that the way that works? Okay, does that mean you're the only one in your right mind? No, it's generally because most of the world's population is right-handed. Only about 10% of the world's population is left-handed. So actually about 9%, 1% is ambidextrous. They can use either hand. But about 90% of the world is right-handed. So generally speaking, the right hand is the hand of strength. It's the hand of skill. Most people have more strength in their right hand because they use their right hand more. Right? It's associated with God's strength. You see it in Exodus 15 and 6. It's also associated with God's favor. When you look at Psalms 16 and 11. It's also God's help in Psalms 20 and 6. This is why Jesus is described as sitting at the right hand of the Father. So Israel knew exactly what he was doing and exactly what he intended to do. Right? By placing his right hand on Ephraim's head, what he was doing is he intended to grant the greater blessing to the younger child. That's not normal. That wasn't the normal custom or the normal expectation. It was the firstborn that was supposed to get the greater blessing, but he was going for the left hand. Now Joseph sees this, and he's going, okay, wait just a second. Verses 15 and 16, and he blessed Joseph and said, God, before whom my father Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow in a multitude in the midst of the earth. So Israel granted the blessing in a deep, deep awareness of the covenant that he had with Abraham, or that God had with Abraham and Isaac. And he knew that he was receiving that covenant. He was an heir to that covenant. And that it came from God's promise to his grandfather Abraham and his father Isaac. Okay? And in blessing Joseph's son, it could rightly be said that Israel blessed Joseph. Israel gave the same blessing to both sons. It wasn't two separate blessings. He gave the same blessing to both sons. But the son on the right hand received the greater portion of the blessing. And we'll see as we go along and as we study more that this is fulfilled in Israel's history. Both tribes are blessed, but Ephraim was the greater tribe. Even to the point where the name Ephraim was used to refer to the whole northern nation of Israel. Now, he said, look what he said. He said, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day. This is Jacob's testimony. And it's a testimony of grace, not of personal merit. Okay? What's interesting to look at this is Jacob is not saying how faithful he was to God. He is saying how faithful God was to him. Okay? Now let's look at that phrase, the God who fed me. In Hebrew, that is Ha Elohim Haroeoti. This literally means the God who has shepherded me. All right? It says, the God who has shepherded me. This is the first mention in the Bible of God as a shepherd to his people. The very first mention. Now, we think of God as our shepherd all the time. We look at 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd. We see that all through. But this is the first time that God actually mentions that he's the shepherd. Okay? Let's look at verses 17 to 20. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. And he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He shall also become a people, and he shall also be great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, In thee shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. So the two sons are standing before Israel. Right? The older, Manasseh, was before his right hand. The younger, Ephraim, was before his left hand. As in tradition, custom should be. Okay? Hold on. He brought him up. Joseph brought him up in his left hand, so he brought up Manasseh in his left hand, so he was in Israel's right. Okay? If you switch around, my left hand is your right hand. Right? Okay? So he brought them up, and he brought them up that way. So he's got Manasseh on the right, Ephraim on the left, which as custom it should have been. Joseph positioned them intentionally that way so that the older could receive the right hand blessing, which was custom. Okay? Yet Israel deliberately crossed his hands. Okay? He knew where they were at. He wasn't dumb. He could see where they were at, and he just went, yeah, okay. So he crossed his hands to give Ephraim the right hand blessing and Manasseh the left hand blessing. Okay? Ephraim was not the firstborn. Manasseh was. But God chose him to take the position of the firstborn. Jeremiah 31:9 describes this. It says, "For I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn." This shows the idea of firstborn in the Bible is often a place or a position of preeminence. Not necessarily the first one out of the womb. Okay? Well, let's look through the Bible. David had the position of firstborn, even though he was the youngest son. Jesus has the preeminent position of firstborn, though this does not mean that Jesus was literally the firstborn creature of God, because Jesus was not created. Okay? So he was not a creature of God. All right? So let's look at verses 21 and 22. "And Israel said unto Joseph, Behold, I die, but God shall be with you, and bring you again unto the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given thee one portion above thy brethren, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow." This was truly passing the torch to Joseph. Israel was the last of the three great patriarchs, and he was about to die. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He said he had gave him one portion above thy brethren. That means that Joseph, being the father of two, would be the father of two tribes. All the other ones would be the father of one tribe. Okay? He said, "Which I took out of the hand of the Amorite." Now, apparently, sometime while he was still in Canaan, Jacob battled for control of a portion of land from the Amorites. And then he deeded this portion of land to Joseph and his descendants. Okay? The descendants of Joseph would take this land, albeit some 400 years later. And he said, "God shall be with you and bring you again unto the land of your fathers." This completed a wonderful work regarding Jacob's recognition of God's presence in his life. Huh? Yeah, that's part of Canaan's land. Yeah, the land of Canaan, yes. But this completed that work regarding Jacob's recognition of God's presence in his life. "I am with you." Genesis 28:15. This applies to us too, because God gives the young believer every possible assurance that of his presence and his grace. Genesis 31:3. He says, "I will be with you." This applies to us, and that God expects the growing believer to trust that he will be with them all the time, even when he only has the promise of his presence. Okay? Genesis 31:5. He said, "God has been with me." God will give glorious testimony to the mature believer, able to say how God has been with him, even when he hasn't felt his presence in the way that he wished he would feel his presence. See, we know that God's with us even in those times when we don't feel him like we wish we did. Okay? And there are and then there are other times that it just overwhelms you. I was driving into Fort Smith this morning to go to my cardiac rehab, and I was listening to the song that you told me about. Listening to that thing, and I just started bawling. I couldn't help it. It was just, that was such a wonderful song. He says, God will be with you. Genesis 48:21. This God gives the mature believer the opportunity to encourage others with the promise of God's presence. It says, I am with you. I have been with you. I will be with you. And that we can rest assured in that promise. All right. That takes us to the end of 48. Woohoo! Let's get into 49 now. Chapter 49, verses 1 and 2. Let me move my notes up here. We're going to start seeing, Jacob is going to start blessing his sons now, all the sons. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. This was Jacob's last significant act as the patriarch and as an heir of Abraham and Isaac. Here he prophesied blessings upon each one of his sons, one by one. And some of what we're going to see in the following is not so much a blessing as they are prophecies regarding what God will do with the tribes in the future. Now this, yes. The patriarchs, the ancestors, the top dogs of the ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That, that's ending with that's pretty much it's ending with Israel. Okay? This is the first conscious prophecy spoken by a man in the Bible. Think about that for just a second. This is the first time a conscious prophecy is given by a man in the Bible. There are a lot of prophecies before that were announced by God. Okay? And there are some veiled prophecies that were given by men. But this is the first declared prophecy through a man in the Bible. And it only took us 49 chapters to get there. Okay? Yeah, over a year. At the very beginning of the blessing, Jacob, now get this. At the very beginning, as he's doing this, Jacob finally realizes that he is both Jacob and Israel. Okay? He said, hearken to the voice of Jacob and your father Israel. Okay? And his sons were the sons of each one of them. So his sons were the sons both of Jacob and of Israel. Now, we can look at this and see that this was a place of spiritual maturity for him. Realizing what God made him, which was Israel, and what he had battled against, which was Jacob. Okay? In Genesis 49, verses 3 and 4, it says, Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, and defilest thou it. he went up to my couch. So as the firstborn of the family, Reuben had claim to the inheritance right of the firstborn. Okay? But he forfeited it. Why? Because of pride. Okay? And not only pride, but also immorality. And because of Reuben's instability, the birthright was now divided. Usually, the firstborn is the spiritual and social leader of the clan. Okay? The firstborn child is supposed to be the one that carries on the name, does all of these things, okay? But among the sons of Israel, the rights of blessing, priesthood, and ruling authority were divided among all the brothers rather than centralized in one brother. Okay? Though we see the great wisdom that God has in this in decentralizing the authority among the sons, Reuben paid a high price for his instability. Let's think about that. God says you are as, or Jacob said you are as unstable as water. That's pretty unstable. Okay? He says you're as unstable as water. And Reuben paid the high price for his instability. As much as anything, God looks for stable character in those who are going to lead his people. And the tribe of Reuben, we'll see, never did excel. As a matter of fact, when you look down through history on it, no prophet, no judge, and no king that we know of came out of the tribe of Reuben. Okay? Reuben is an example of how the first can be the last. All right. Verses 5 through 7. Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. O my soul, come not thou into their secret, unto their assembly, mine honor. Be not thou united. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they digged down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. So the second-born, Simeon, and the third-born, Levi, received the same words for the same evil deed. They were instruments of cruelty. Okay? Anybody remember what they did? Okay, yeah. Right, very good. They wiped out all the men of Shechem in retaliation for the rape of their sister Dinah. Okay? Jacob, perhaps in weakness at the time, did nothing about it. Okay? Except maybe register a small self-centered complaint about it. Okay? This illustrates the principle that the sin of our past can come back to haunt us. Even when we're forgiven, the sin of our past can come back to haunt us. Okay? Why? I'm forgiven. Well, yeah, we're forgiven. But the sins that we did may carry consequences that we have to face during our life. The real problem with Simeon and Levi was their anger. Their anger was sin because it was rooted in self-will. Now, the Bible speaks of godly and ungodly anger. Some anger is okay. Okay? Often the difference between a godly, righteous anger, which there are times that we can be righteously indignant. There are times that we can be righteously angry. Yeah, that was when Jesus was flipping the tables. Okay? So there are times when we can have a godly, righteous anger. And the difference between the righteous anger and an ungodly anger, most of the time, is self-will. It's all self-centered on us. So the prophecy of dividing and scattering turned out to be a curse for Simeon. Okay? The tribe of Simeon numerically was the weakest tribe of all the 12. And it shared an allotment with the of land with Judah. The tribe of Simeon became small during the wilderness wandering after they leave Egypt. And they wander in the wilderness because, as you women would say, Moses refused to stop and ask for directions. But that wasn't why it was. Okay? As a matter of fact, they started out from Egypt as the third largest tribe of all of them when they left. But in some 35 years, at the second wilderness census of Israel, 63% of the tribe perished, and they became the smallest tribe. Yeah, in 35 years. The prophecy of dividing and scattering of the people became a blessing for Levi, though. Because of the faithfulness of the tribe during the rebellion of the golden calf, which we'll see about, but we all know that's when they all came out and they decided to make the golden cow, or the golden calf, to worship it. And, it was the tribe of Levi that was faithful against that. It was scattered as a blessing throughout the whole nation of Israel. Right? They became the priests within all the nation of Israel. Yeah, that's where we get Levites. Okay? So they received no large tract of land through any of it because the Lord was their inheritance, not land. So both Simeon and Levi were scattered, but one as a blessing and one as a curse. All right. Verses 8 to 12. Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, from the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of all the people be. Binding up his fowl unto the vine, and his ass's colt unto the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his clothes in the blood of grapes. His eyes shall be red with wine, and his teeth white with milk. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be successful. Now, Judah, as we all know, Judah was by no means an exemplary character. Okay. As a matter of fact, he was the one that suggested a profit motive in getting rid of Joseph in the first place. And he did not deal with his daughter-in-law, Tamar, very faithfully. Matter of fact, he had sex with her as a prostitute. Okay? But he did show good character when he interceded and offered himself as a substitute for Benjamin. Overall, this blessing, we can see it as an example of the richness of God's grace to the undeserving. In a powerful way, this prophecy over Judah is a description of Judah's great descendant, Jesus Christ. Each blessing refers to the ruling position Judah will have over his brothers. He inherited the leadership aspect of the firstborn inheritance. Remember, Reuben should have had that, but Judah gets it. This position among his brothers meant that the eventual kings of Israel would come from Judah. And not just that, but the Messiah, God's ultimate leader, would eventually come from the tribe of Judah. Now, the leadership prophecy took about 640 years to fulfill, but it did it. And we complain when we don't get our stuff fulfilled in, 2 hours. They had to wait 640 years to get it done. And it was first fulfilled with the reign of David. That was the first of Judah's dynasty of kings. And then the prophecy took some 1,600 years to completely be fulfilled in Jesus. See, Jesus is referred to as Shiloh. The name means he whose right it is, or whom it belongs. And the title anciently understood to speak of the Messiah. Now he says, binding his foal unto the vine. This blessing also contained a description of Judah's material abundance. Now Judah's land, it was great wine growing country. So that's where they, it was real good land and they had abundance in it. Look at verse number 13. Zebulun shall dwell at the haven of the sea, and he shall be for a haven of ships, and his border shall be unto Zidon. Jacob now skips over the birth order. Okay? He moves to the 10th born son and the 9th born son. So he's bouncing around. Okay? But he is keeping his focus right now on the sons born to Leah. The tribe of Zebulun was noted for its faithfulness to David, supplying the largest number of soldiers to David's armies. And the tribe of Zebulun seems to have settled the piece of land sitting between the Mediterranean Sea and the Sea of Galilee. Yeah, big trading area. So Zebulun did look to the sea, both to the east and to the west. Okay? Verses 14 and 15. Issachar is a strong ass couching down between two burdens. And he saw that rest was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant unto tribute. So Issachar was a large tribe. In fact, in Numbers 26, the census there, it actually named them as being the third largest tribe at that time. And because of their size and abundance, there were often targets of oppressive foreign armies who put them in servitude. So they got enslaved quite a bit. All right? Verses 16 to 18. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that biteth the horse heels, so that his rider shall fall backward. I have waited for thy salvation, O Lord. Now, we do know that the tribe of Dan did judge his people. Most of the judges came from the tribe of Dan. As a matter of fact, they supplied one of the most prominent of the judges, Solomon. But Dan was a troublesome tribe. Right? What did I say? I mean Samson. Solomon was king. Samson, yeah. Not Solomon. Solomon. See, to make sure y'all was on your toes. But Dan supplied one of the best, the greatest judges, which was Samson. Right? Solomon was a king, not. But Dan was a troublesome tribe. For example, they introduced idolatry to Israel. Jeroboam set up one of his idolatrous golden calves in Dan. And later, Dan became the center of idol worship in Israel. So some think the serpent, by the way, refers to the idea that the Antichrist would come from the tribe of Dan. Anybody ever heard that before? Just now, okay. Some people believe that the Antichrist will come from the tribe of Dan. Okay? As a matter of fact, when we look in Revelation 7, Dan is left out of the listing of the tribes regarding the 144,000. Right? But, however, Dan is the first tribe listed in Ezekiel's millennial roll call of the tribes in Ezekiel 28. Okay? So this is a remarkable sign of God's redemption. He says, I have waited for thy salvation, O Lord. At this point in the prophecy, when Jacob is near death, he called out for God's salvation. Now, knowingly or not, Jacob was calling out to Jesus. All right. Verse number 19. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. So Gad supplied a lot of fine troops for the later king of Israel, David. In the days of Jeremiah, foreign armies oppressed Gad, yet victory would be his in the end. Verse 20, out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. In Deuteronomy 33:24, Moses again took up this prophecy regarding Asher. He said, let Asher be blessed with children. Let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. Now, apparently, the land eventually occupied by Asher was good enough to bring not only necessities, but also luxuries. Okay? All right, verse 21. Naphtali is the hind let loose. He giveth goodly words. Right? So Naphtali's land was in a key portion near the Sea of Galilee, the region Jesus did most of his teaching and had most of his ministry. So, in other words, he giveth goodly words. Right? Because so much of the ministry of Jesus took place in the region of Naphtali, this was fittingly said of him. All right, verses 22 to 26. I think we're going to make it through. Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bow by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him, and shot at him, and hated him. But his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. Even by the God of thy father, who shall help thee, and by the Almighty, who shall bless thee with blessings of heaven above, blessings of deep that lieth under, blessings of the breast and of the womb. The blessings of thy father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors, ancestors, unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of his head, of the head of him that was separate from his brethren. Now this was both a description of Joseph's life and a personal blessing concerning his descendants. In a sense, Joseph's tribes were already blessed. because his sons received their blessing. Okay? So the description of Joseph as fruitful by the well speaks of his being well watered and provided for. He was taken care of. In his deep and real relationship with God, the idea is that God's hands were on Joseph's hands, giving him strength and skill to work the bow expertly. Okay? God was there, even when Joseph didn't know it. We see that throughout his entire life as he came through. From the time that he was thrown in the pit to where he was drug out and sold into slavery to now, God's hand had always been upon him, even if he didn't see it. Joseph was certainly blessed in his posterity. Okay? His tribe were some of the most populous. And in this sense, he received material blessing. Now, the double portion aspect of the inheritance of the firstborn, the blessing of thy father, have prevailed above the blessing of my progenitors. It's a hard word to say. It basically means ancestors. Okay? So we won't have to use that again, but that's what it means, is the ancestors. I'm going to move up there. All right. Jacob could say this because for much of his life, he was kind of a scoundrel. Okay? Now at the end of his days, he saw just how good God was to him. He was forgiven much and loved much. Okay? In his words about Joseph, Jacob listed 5 great titles of God, as a matter of fact. These titles show that Jacob did come to an understanding of who God is. He called him the mighty God of Jacob, the shepherd, the stone of Israel, the God of your father, the Almighty. This is much better than when Jacob referred to God as the God of Abraham or the fear of his father Isaac. Now he knew who God was himself. Before he knew who God was according to Abraham and Isaac. Now he knows who God is. Okay? Verse number 27. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. This was a tribe with a reputation of fierceness. Okay? Look at Ehud. Judges 31, 15 to 23. Saul. Huh? Ehud. Yeah. That's the name. That's somebody's name. Okay. You can find him in Judges 3, 15 to 23. Saul, 1 Samuel 9 and 1 and 14, 47 to 52. The cruelty of the tribe. We can see that in Judges 19 and 20. So, the reputation of this tribe was fierce. Right? Verse 28. And these are the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is it that their father spake unto them and blessed them, every one according to his blessing he blessed them. Now, some of the things mentioned regarding the tribes may seem a bit cloudy to that. Okay? But only because we don't know the exact fulfillment until when? The age to come. See, all of these prophecies have not yet been fulfilled. There's still some to come. But a remarkable promise remains. They each would survive to grow into significant tribes without a single one of them perishing during the centuries to come in Egypt. 400 years they spent captive in Egypt, and yet not one of them was wiped out. each of them grew. Okay. All right. Now we are going to get done on time. Verses 29 to 33. And he charged them and said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite. In the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite for possession of a burying place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. The purchase of the field and of the cave that is therein was from the children of Heth. And when Jacob had made an end of commanding his son, he gathered up his feet into the bed and yielded up the ghost and was gathered unto his people. So Jacob was confident that his father Isaac and his grandfather Abraham continued to live in an eternal state, and that he would gather to them. Now Jacob was in Egypt, but even though he knew he was in Egypt, he knew that he was not an Egyptian. He was the son of the promise and an heir of God's covenant with Abraham. And he asked to be buried in the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob by covenant. Now, because of the respect that Jacob had in Egypt, he could have been buried like a pharaoh. They would have built the pyramid for him and everything. Okay? But he wanted to be buried in an obscure cave in Canaan. Why? Because Canaan was the promised land. Now Jacob breathes his last, and this ends the life of the last great patriarch. Yet the work and the plan of God didn't end there. It continued through men and through generations to come. It says, and he was gathered unto his people. There are three basic attitudes towards death. Okay? Anybody know what they are? They have an idea? No? Well, nobody even want to guess? Okay? Among the Greeks, they had what was called the death accepting view. The death accepting view. They accepted death. Death is going to happen. Okay? Yeah, carried around swords, yeah. But they accepted death is going to happen. We're all going to die. You know, at some point in time, we're all going to die. We accept this. Now, the Greeks had different beliefs of what happened after you died, but for the most part, they all accepted, death is death. We're going to die. We're all going to die at some point in time. Right? Now, the modern world today has been sold out to what they call the death-denying view. Right? Which means what? Which means they're wrong. Huh? Well, when you die, you die. But most of them act like, people run around now and they act like, I'm not going to die. I'm going to live forever. Yeah, it's not a big deal. I'm going to live forever. The way a lot of people act nowadays, what they portray, that's what they put off. I'm not going to die. You know? It's not going to happen. All right. Now the Bible, huh? Yeah, yeah. I thought that way when I thought that way when I was 25. I thought I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And if I'd have known I was going to live this long, I'd have took a whole lot better care of myself when I was 25 too. Probably not. I probably would have done the same thing. But the biblical view is the view that we should have as Christians. Anybody know what that view is? It's the death-defying attitude. You know, yeah, we know death's coming. We know it's there, but so what? Death is just graduation for us. Death is not the final place. Death is not the end. We're just graduating to the next place is all we're doing. Okay? So we know that this is not it. This is not it. This is not the end. We have got something better than this. That's why that's why, huh? Christians, yeah. Well, yeah, but yeah, but theirs isn't going to be nearly as pleasant. Yeah. They have a place to go too. Yeah. But that's why you get these people that they have like they're writing books and they're selling people books that say live your best life now. I don't want to live my best life now. If I'm living if this is my best life, that means the next one's not going to be very good. I want my next life to be the best life, you know. You know, yeah. Depends on, huh? Well, we don't go to the highest level of heaven, but we go to a place outside of heaven, and then our body is reunited with us. No, it's not purgatory. Purgatory is a place of punishment. Okay, so we don't go to purgatory. We go to ashes to ashes, dust to dust, referring to the body. Okay. Well, yeah. Yeah, they yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't mean, yeah, well, I never tell people, I'm right. I know that I'm right. I believe. Now, whenever, it's in like Revelation, the Spirit taught us, done a great job. Well, I still can't comprehend a lot of things. Because back in, Jesus said this, he was warning the woman that had a baby and then had a second one. Two different childs. They were there. The time was there, and the Lord told them to go. Okay? So I haven't ever completely found my settlement or peace. Okay, that's why I'm studying Revelation. I'm going to find out, and something's got to get in my head to understand why this will say one thing, why this will say another thing. And there are scholars that, at Brother Who's church, he can come, talked about going at the beginning. Those that proved that we was going to go in the middle. Those that proved we was going to last, I rebuked them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because everybody's teaching. So when we learn, okay, and there's a lot of times I don't see eye to eye with Brother Stewart, but I let him teach because that's what he believes. Well, he may be totally right, but I may be totally wrong too. But it's the part. We are here because we haven't changed
Yeah.
salvation. And that's what it's all about. What's good is we can get along with our different beliefs and
Different
all,
views. Yeah.
because it's not about what we believe one way or the other. It's because we are after souls being saved.
And
And
it's
that's why we can get along. Other than that, I'm right all the time.
yeah.
So when I come to the cemetery, it stops.
It's like it's like I said when I started out teaching in Revelation. If y'all remember when I first that was 2 years ago, but when I first taught one of the first things, or actually the first thing that I said when I taught Revelation, is that this is my belief based on my study, based on what I have found and what I've done. This. Okay? You may believe something entirely different. That's okay. What it boils down to is when you're listening to people, and it's always good to listen to differing views on teaching so you can decide how you want to believe on it, and you can do your studying for yourself. When it comes down to it, you have to look at the teaching that you're receiving and the preaching that you're receiving. Is this going to affect my salvation in any way? If this is going to affect my salvation or damage my salvation, then no, I don't want to hear it. But whether we go on the first boatload, second boatload, third boatload, whether we go on the beginning, middle, or end, doesn't matter as long as we go. Okay? I don't care if the bus leaves at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or 12 o'clock, as long as I'm on the bus to go. That's the main thing.
Thank you for joining us today. We pray you were blessed by the broadcast. If you have a prayer request or questions about Solid Rock Tabernacle, please visit our website at www.solidrocktabernacle.org. That's www.solidrocktabernacle.org. On behalf of the pastors and congregation here at Solid Rock Tabernacle, we pray you have a blessed week, and we invite you to join us in person or on one of our future broadcasts.